looking at the concentric structure again of the Aramaic chapters of the book of Daniel, chapters 2 through 7, working our way outward from the two central chapters of 4 and 5, which dealt with God making and breaking kings, we work to chapters 3 and 6, which tell the stories of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace and Daniel in the lion's den. Both of those chapters deal with the cultural conflict between the Hellenistic Seleucid Empire and the Jewish people to pressure them to take on a pagan culture and a pagan worship. In chapter 3, the three young men are commanded, along with the rest of the kingdom, to worship the great golden statue whenever they hear any musical instrument. And there's a rather long list of the instruments that are named, in which when they are played, everyone is to worship the golden statue. In chapter 6, King Darius, having conquered the Babylonian Empire, declares that the God of Israel is not to be worshipped, and Daniel, in an act of entrapment by his enemies, is caught privately worshiping the God of Israel. In the story of the golden statue, the three young men refuse to worship that statue, and Nebuchadnezzar threatens them with the fiery furnace. And these three young men say, God will save us from death. But even if he will not, know, O king, that we will not worship the golden statue. So these three young men leave it open to God's will, whether God will save them or not, but remain firm that they will not give in to pagan worship. In chapter 6, Daniel also refuses to worship the pagan god of the Persians and will continue to worship the God of Israel, even though that has been outlawed. He is threatened with the lion's den, but remains firm that he will be faithful to worshiping the God of Israel. In chapter 3, the three young men are thrown into the fiery furnace that is heated up beyond its normal capacity for heat, so hot that the men who throw Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego into the furnace are themselves consumed by the flames, but the three young men are saved from death, because God sends his angel to walk with them in the midst of the fiery furnace. Nebuchadnezzar looks into the flames, sees the three young men and the fourth person, who is described as one that looks like a son of God, and declares, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these three men are saved from death because they would not give in to pagan worship. And in the story of Daniel in the lion's den, perhaps the most well-known story and most beloved story in the book of Daniel, and in perhaps the entire Bible, Daniel is thrown into the lion's den, where, again, an angel of the Lord is sent to close the mouths of the lions and preserve Daniel's life, rewarding him, saving him from death, because he remained faithful in worshiping the God of Israel. And so, in addressing that conflict of paganism versus proper Jewish worship, the author of Daniel, in setting these stories in the Babylonian exile, addressed the conflict of his present period in the mid-2nd century BC. And what is the message of the three young men in the fiery furnace and Daniel in the lion's den? Very simple. Remain faithful to the worship of the God of Israel, and the God of Israel will save you from death. Well, the stories of the men in the fiery furnace and of Daniel in the lion's den are perfectly applicable to the church's experience throughout history. Many times, from the earliest decades to the first few centuries, even down to today in such places as the persecution of Christians in the Middle East, or places in the Far East, in Africa, and other places throughout the world, those who suffer for the faith can relate to the message of Daniel as expressed in the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace and Daniel in the lion's den. The message is, be true to your faith. Continue to profess it. Do not give in to false worship or false observances that are against the precepts of our faith. And God, in the end, will save us from death. Maybe not in the same way as he saved Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and Daniel, but when we look at it in the vast expanse of eternal life, while we may in the end suffer death for our faith, God will reward us by saving us from eternal death in the reward of eternal life in the kingdom of heaven. And so that is a point of the book of Daniel, that we can hopefully pray that those who suffer for that faith continually remember, be true to what you are being persecuted for, and in the end, God will save you from death, reward you with eternal life for your witness to that faith you profess.